I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I have a PhD in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists, and as you might expect, I love to read. I have for you today a very special announcement, and it is for Victober, or Victorian Literature October, which is a time here on BookTube when we spend the month reading works from Britain and Ireland published between 1837 and 1901. I am so excited to be part of this because this is a very special Victober. This is the 10th Victober. And so because of that, the usual hosts have decided to have 10 co-hosts and 10 challenges, and they invited me to be one of those co-hosts. And I am incredibly flattered and I'm so excited to be a part of this. Our hosts are Kate Howe, Katie from Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, Roz from Scallydandling About the Books, me, Elizabeth from A Literary Princess, Hannah from Hannah's Books, Jess from Dickens and Docs over on Instagram, although she does have a YouTube channel, Milena from Milena Reads, Roy from Roy Reads Anything, and Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. As I said, I am so excited to be co-hosting this event with everybody. It's going to be amazing. Victober is my favorite time of the year, so to be included in hosting it is just amazing for me. A challenge from each host, and we also have a group read. This was voted for in a poll over on Discord, and it won by like just this much, and it is Hester by Margaret Oliphant from 1883. If you've been here for a while, you know that Margaret Oliphant is my favorite Victorian novelist. No, I did not rig the poll. It just worked out. So Hester is about a young girl named Hester who is living on the charity of an older relative, Catherine Vernon, who is a very interesting woman because she is unmarried and runs her family's bank because in typical Oliphant fashion, all of the men in the family are useless. And these two butt heads because they are very similar. And we see that play out along with Hester's relationships with many other people in this community. And it's such a good book, like utterly, utterly fantastic. And I'm so excited to read it with everybody. We will be doing 2 chapters a day from October 1st to 22nd, although there will be 3 chapters on that last day. So I hope that you'll all join us with this. I'm so excited to reread it. It's just so good. I've been wanting to reread it for a while, so this worked out very well. Now for the challenges. You are not required to participate in these. They are just here if you want to do them for fun. You can also double up on books for them or triple up. So like if you have a book that ticks off 5 of the challenges, first of all, wow, good for you, and tell me that book. But also, yes, please do use that. So our challenges are Kate's challenge, read a Victorian book where friendship is featured. Katie's challenge, read a work of Victorian literature that is not a novel, so a play, a poem, nonfiction, etc. Marissa's challenge, read a work of Victorian literature where a character experiences a change in status. Roz's challenge, empire spotting. See how many times you can spot signs of the empire in your Victober reading. My challenge, read a work by an underrated Victorian woman writer, meaning not the Brontes sisters, not George Eliot, not Elizabeth Gaskell, not Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and not Christina Rossetti. I had to do it. This is what I do. Like, of course this was going to be my challenge. We will talk more about some recommendations for this challenge at the end. Hannah's challenge, read a Victorian work that discusses education. Jess's challenge, step back in time, read a Victorian work set in a different era. Milena's challenge, spin a digital color wheel and pick a Victorian book with a cover that primarily features that cover. This is gonna be such chaos for my TBR, and I love it. Roy's challenge, read a Victorian work of fantasy. Catherine's challenge, read a Victorian book that has a connection to Jane Austen. This is in celebration of it being Jane Austen's 250th birthday. So as I said, you do not need to complete all of these challenges. You don't need to complete any of these challenges. But for fun, Kate has come up with a kind of tier ranking for them. So if you complete 1 to 3 challenges, you are a Mr. Micawber level from David Copperfield. 4 to 6 challenges, you are Jane Eyre level. 7 to 9 challenges, you are Sherlock Holmes level. And if you complete all 10 challenges, you are Dracula level. Because as Katie says, you would need to be an immortal magical being to complete all these challenges. I'm gonna try to complete all these challenges. We'll see what happens. Roy created a really fun scoring card for the challenges. I will have a picture here, and I will put the link down in the description box so you can download it. Also in the description box is the link for the Discord server. Please come over and chat with us and all of the other participants. It's a lot of fun. And also linked down there will be the announcement videos for all of my co-hosts. Please go and watch them. They will each have recommendations for their own challenge. So let's move into recommendations for my challenge of reading a work by an underrated Victorian woman writer. I have tried to not go over the top. I don't know if that succeeded, but I tried. Please note, these are mostly novels and short stories with a few works of nonfiction mixed in. I am not very familiar with poetry, period, especially from this era. Like, you'd think I would be, no, I'm not. I do have 2 poets that I mention at the end who I have not read anything by, but I would like to. So, yeah. Sorry, just not a big poetry person. So, the first author who I have to recommend is Margaret Oliphant, of course, who handily we're reading for the group read. Hey. Hester is a great place to start with Margaret Oliphant too, because it's one of her standalone books, whereas most of her other well-known ones are part of a series that we'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, if you participate in the group read, you're automatically completing my challenge. You could also pick up the first few works in Oliphant's Chronicles of Carlingford series, The Executor, the Rector, and the Doctor's Family, all from 1861. This is a lovely Victoria's Archives edition, pretty recently released. I am so happy because this is the only imprint edition that has all 3 of these together. There's only been one other edition that did that, and it's no longer in print. So, very excited for that. Had to give Victoria's Archives a little plug. I love them. Yeah, so these are 2 short stories and 1 novella, showing us life in this small town of Carlingford. The Executor deals with an inheritance issue of a will that the executor is required to find a person, and if that person is not found, the inheritance reverts to somebody else. The Rector deals with the new rector of Carlingford and his kind of trouble fitting into the parish. And the Doctor's Family deals with the young Dr. Edward Ryder, who is being plagued by his alcoholic older brother. And then the older brother's wife, children, and sister-in-law show up on his doorstep, and he did not even know his brother was married. So that's fun. I love the Chronicles of Carlingford. They're great. I very much recommend reading them in order. I did not. But yeah, I recommend reading these first. Wanting something a little bit spooky for the Halloween season, Margaret Oliphant did write several supernatural short stories, usually referred to as the Tales of the Seen and Unseen. And the best one of those is The Library Window. This is such a good story. It's just great. It is about a young woman staying with an aunt in Scotland. There is, I believe it's a library across from them. And there is this window. And she sees a guy working in there. And she's like, okay, that seems normal. Problem is, nobody can agree if the window is actually there or not. And she's like, but I've seen a guy. But other people are like, no, it's just a wall. So that's weird. I won't say anything else because obviously it's a short story. I don't want to give anything away, but it is so, so good and perfect for Halloween season. And if you want some nonfiction, Margaret Oliphant's got you covered there. First of all, there is her autobiography. This is the edition edited by Elizabeth J., which is the edition I highly recommend you get. The original version, published in 1899, was edited by her cousin, Annie Coghill, and she did some removal of some things, and she also completely changed the order of the entries. So Elizabeth J. restores that original, how it is originally in the manuscript, so that you can get Margaret Oliphant in all of her snarky glory, because girl is snarky. Very snarky. So this is very interesting, and I do highly recommend it. I also wrote a dissertation chapter on it, so I am slightly biased. But if you're wanting some shorter nonfiction, Margaret Oliphant also has you covered because she wrote so many articles. We do not even know how many articles she actually wrote. Mostly for Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine. Her two best known ones are her rants against sensation novels, one from, I believe, 1862 and one from 1867. You can find them anthologized sometimes, and if you search Margaret Oliphant sensation novels on Google, they will probably come up. I know that Internet Archive has the copies of Blackwood's that they're in, but that would require like the volume number and all that, and I don't have that right now, and I would have to bring up my dissertation to get that, and I don't want to. I don't want to look at it. So, but you should be able to find them pretty easily on Google because they are her most well-known articles. If for some reason you don't want to read Margaret Oliphant, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but okay, may I recommend Mary Elizabeth Braddon. She is most famously known for her sensation novels, Lady Audley's Secret from 1862, and Aurora Floyd from 1863, both of them dealing with bigamy. And they made her rather infamous. If you missed out on last year's group read, you could also pick that up. It is The Doctor's Wife from 1864, a kind of reworking of Madame Bovary about a woman named Isabel Gilbert who reads too many novels and wants life to be exactly like them. Or if you want to go for one of her less known works, you can try The Lady's Mile from 1866, which features the return of Sigismund Smith from The Doctor's Wife. If you participated in the group read last year, you know Sigismund. He makes some cameo appearances in The Lady's Mile. But this story mainly deals with two women, Lady Cecil and her friend whose name I am not remembering. Nope, it's gone. But both of them marry men that they do not love for different reasons, and we get to see the results. So those two were my dissertation authors, and here's my final dissertation author, Charlotte Riddle. So her best known book is A Struggle for Fame from 1883, following two Irish immigrants, Glenn Wesley and Bernard Kelly, as they move to London and try to make it in the literary world. This is so good. So good. It is semi-autobiographical, and it's just fantastic. But Charlotte Riddle was also big on the ghost stories, if you're looking for some spooky stuff. Her novella, The Uninhabited House, is about a house that is being rented out, but nobody will stay there. They're saying it's haunted. And so finally, the lawyer's clerk, the lawyer who is representing the person who actually owns the house, his clerk is like, I'm gonna go stay there and find out what the heck is going on. Spooky things ensue. So good. She also has a collection of short stories, weird stories, mostly ghost tales that are also great for spooky season. Sticking with the Charlottes, I guess, we have Charlotte Mary Young, who I believe is one of Kate Howe's favorite authors. And the one I have physically is The Clever Woman of the Family from 1865, which is great. This is following Rachel Curtis, who is an unmarried woman who's really looking for her mission in life with tragicomic results. Two more well-known ones are The Daisy Chain from 1856 and The Heir of Redcliffe from 1853. The Daisy Chain is following the May family, particularly, I think she's the third oldest daughter, Ethel, who is kind of awkward and bookish. And this is really just the development of their family after a carriage accident kills their mother and disables their oldest sister. It's really good. But The Heir of Redcliffe, I think, is even better. This is the story of Sir Guy Morville, who is the heir of Redcliffe, as he goes to live with his guardian, Mr. Edmonstone, and his family, which consists of a disabled son, Charlie, and then 3 daughters, one of whom Sir Guy starts falling in love with. But we also have his cousin, Philip Morville, who is in love with the other daughter and really has this prejudice against Sir Guy. And we get to see how all of that plays out. This I read earlier this year, and it's one of my top books of the year. I'd be remiss if I did not mention my girl Ouida. So my favorite by her is Moths from 1880. This is the story of Vere Herbert, who goes to live with her mother on the continent, and her mother, Lady Dolly, is trying to force her into a marriage with this Russian prince, and Vere does not like him at all. This is really good. I love it. Ouida's most well-known book is Under Two Flags from 1867. It follows Bertie Cecil, who, for various reasons, he's an English aristocrat, but for various reasons he goes and joins the French army in Algeria and ends up meeting the best character ever, Cigarette, a young girl who is a camp follower and is awesome. If you're wanting something shorter by Ouida, there is also the short story A Dog of Flanders from 1872. This is kind of considered a children's classic in some places, and it is the story of a boy and his dog. Get ready to cry. Another great option is Dinah Mullet Craik. Her book Olive from 1850 follows the title character, who was born with a deformed spine and decides she will become an artist. You could also join me in reading Mistress and Maid from 1862, which follows the 3 Miss Leafs and their new maid as they get to know each other and become friends. If you're wanting some early Victorian works, Harriet Martineau is a great place to go. Her Deer Brook from 1839 was a book that I read for Victober last year, and I love it. It's about 2 sisters who moved to the town of Deerbrook and them becoming engaged with the community there. You can also turn to Martineau for some nonfiction, because she too has an autobiography published in 1877, although it was written in the 1850s when she thought she was dying, but she wasn't. This is really interesting, seeing her development as a woman of letters. If you want to look at some later Victorian stuff, I highly recommend the many New Woman novels. Sarah Grand is probably the best known of the New Woman writers. Her Heavenly Twins from 1893 follows several people. A young woman named Evadne who marries a guy that she does not know very well and then finds out something about him that makes her not want to be married to him. We also have the mischievous twins, Angelica and Diavolo, who are up to shenanigans. This is very long and there is a lot going on, but it is really interesting. But my preferred Sarah Grant novel is the Beth book. We are following the title character, Beth, as she goes from a child to a young woman, gets married, becomes an author, and goes through just life. And it is fantastic. It is a coming of age story, of course. Technically a Bildungsroman, but also it's a coming of age of an artist, so it's a Kunstelroman. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it is really interesting, and I think it's the best of her novels that I've read. Olive Shiner's The Story of an African Farm from 1883 is following the main character of Lyndall as she kind of pushes against the expectations for women of the time. This is also a great book for Roz's challenge because obviously African Farm, it is set in South Africa. Olive Schreiner lived in South Africa. If you are looking for some queer representation in Victorian literature, check out A Sunless Heart by Edith Johnstone from 1894. This is a very strange book. We are following Gasparine, who is a young woman, and she meets Lotus, this beautiful, intelligent female lecturer at the ladies' college. And the relationship that forms between them. It is a weird, structured book, I will be honest, but it is super interesting from the perspective of queer studies and also trauma studies. Please do be aware there is discussion of sexual assault and abuse. So if you're sensitive to that, please go in knowing that. And if you're wanting some short stories, I would recommend George Egerton's Keynotes and Discords. This is two short story collections, one from 1893 and one from 1895 that are usually published together. George Egerton is a pen name. I don't remember her real name off the top of my head. I've only read one story by her called A Little Grey Glove, which I had in an anthology of love stories, but I really want to read more from her because I thought that was quite good. Those are my recommendations for fiction and also a little bit of nonfiction. If you're looking for more fiction for this challenge, may I recommend going to At the Circulating Library, a database of Victorian fiction, 1837 to 1901, maintained by Troy Bassett. I used this extensively in my dissertation as part of, for like data and numbers, but it's so cool. You can like look, okay, I just want women authors, and it'll bring up all of the women authors that are in the database, and you can click on them, and it has a list of their fiction, and it's really cool. It's only long fiction, which I think over 90 pages, but it counts short story collections. And obviously there's no nonfiction, there's no poetry, but it's such a great resource, and it's just really cool. So I do recommend checking that out. I did also want to mention some poets, even though I am not well versed in poetry at all. These are two poets that I want to read. The first is Elizabeth Siddal, who's best known as the pre-Raphaelite model for the painting Ophelia by Millet. But she was actually an artist in her own right and a poet. And there is a collection of all of her poems from the company Victorian Secrets, although they are no longer in business, but you can probably get used copies of this. And you can also find her poems online. And the other poet I wanted to mention is Michael Field, which is actually a pen name for two women, the aunt-niece pair, Catherine Harris Bradley and Edith Emma Cooper, which is just, it's really, I don't know, I'm always fascinated by like co-writing like this. It's just very interesting to me. So they are poets that I want to check out. You can find Michael Field poetry online as well. So if you're looking for something a lot shorter for this challenge, pick up a poem by one of these two. So those are all of my recommendations, and that I think is all of the information that I need to give you for Victober 2025. I really hope that you will join us. It's going to be such a great time. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.